Jenny, so far we have, I think, 3 episodes of the Bold Beginnings series are out. Today, actually, as we record this, the adult diagnosis one went up. And today we are going to record Fear of Insulin Lows and Highs. And
Ooh.
there were a ton of feedback that came from people. Again, these are statements from people in my private Facebook group when asked, what do you wish you would have known at diagnosis? And surrounding the fear of insulin, low blood sugars, high blood sugars, we got this back. So there's a couple of them here in the beginning. It's going to set the stage that don't really need a response. I was scared of insulin. The next one says, seriously, the fear of insulin was real. We were scared of insulin is the next one. We had to wake up twice a night for finger sticks, and it felt like we were chasing a blind number. I'm really glad they did have me practice with glucagon, because when I had to use it, even having to think about it, the person said they wanted to understand glucagon so badly because when they actually had to use it, they were having an experience that was so surreal that there was no time to think. My daughter's had a couple of seizures, and I know what that feels like. You're like, you look at that package and you just hope your body remembers what to do,
Right.
The first thing I really want to talk about here is this statement from a person who said, I was handed a bunch of pamphlets and they said, read these. And oh, by the way, this insulin stuff, it can kill your kid. So don't do it wrong, but don't worry because we've given you all the tools you need. And this person said they were freaked out instantly.
Rightly so, with that type of explanation. Come on, really? You're
Yeah.
given pamphlets to explain something that, for the most part, a lot of people who are using insulin are completely using it like off the standard label of prescription that their doctor told them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, eventually you get to the point of, or many people do, of there is no fear, and you understand the action of insulin. You understand how to manage around it. And that takes fear out of the picture because you get it. But initially, to just be given these pamphlets that's like, here, oh, and be careful because this could kill you.
Yeah.
Well, clearly, right?
Exactly.
There's no fear here.
Everything's fine. Don't worry. We taught you everything you need to know. And you're sitting there thinking, I don't know anything. So how could that be true? It is a really weird situation. It's like, hey, here's a car. Don't worry, they're super safe. But wear the seatbelt and drive 45 and don't hit anything for God's sakes, because you're going to fly through the windshield and die. But don't worry. We taught you where the brake was. So it's going to be okay. And it just, a lot of this does end up boiling down to the person that you luckily or unluckily bump into when you're diagnosed too, just
True.
Their ability to explain something, because that statement, you could just say it in reverse. You could say, hey, listen, we've set you up with all the tools that you need. I know you don't feel comfortable with them right now, but trust me, experiences are going to make them feel more and more just real to you, things you don't have to think about. But until you get to that point, it's important to remember that too much insulin could make you low, could put you in a seizure. I mean, if you gave yourself way too much, it could kill you. But you just have to say it backwards. You know
You do.
I mean? Yeah.
And also bring in, and these are the preventative things that we're doing from the start so that doesn't happen sooner. Eventually you will have low blood sugars. Eventually your child will have a low blood sugar. It will happen. I mean, they put out this, like, insulin can cause a low blood sugar. Insulin will cause a low blood sugar. At some point in your life with diabetes, you will have a low blood sugar.
Yeah.
You will, right? So just tell somebody that, right? That takes it out of the picture of, well, is it going to happen? Yes, it's going to happen. But this is what to do. These are the tools you have. You've got simple carbohydrate. This is what you can expect it to do. Mm-hmm. You've got glucagon. This is what you can expect that it's going to do for you. You've got these pieces to manage when that happens,
right,
which should help somebody feel less fear in using it, right? It's not like they're dropping you off in the middle of the desert with nothing around and, here you go, but you got to take your insulin.
It's like when you send your kids out driving the first time, you're like, listen, drive very safely, be aware of people around you. When you have an accident, which is going to happen one day, here's what you do next. You don't say if, because if gives you that feeling of like, well, maybe I'm going to be one of the people who it never happens to.
Right.
And then you spend your whole life kind of paranoidally. That can't be a word, but you're paranoid. And
it is now.
It is. Damn it. I'll make up words if I have to. But you get in this situation where you're constantly trying to stop a thing. It's like trying to stop the sun from coming up. Like one day your blood sugar's going to, and look, the next person says, I wish the doctors would have explained to us the likelihood of lows and how to treat them. No one told us about that. And my son had a bad low first time we came home. It sounds like the kid was wearing a Libre 2, wanders into their bedroom at 11:30 going, hey, something's making noise in my room. Because you remember that the poor kid's only had diabetes for 2 minutes,
Right.
His blood sugar's 45. And then this poor lady sleeps in his bedroom for the next month. And then she gets a Dexcom that gives her alarms that are a little more in the moment. But a month she's on the floor or on a bed or something, because now she doesn't know, the kid doesn't know, they're all in a panic. Why? Because somebody didn't just say what you just said. The first day my daughter went to kindergarten, I went to the nurse and I said, let me explain all this stuff to you. I explained it all to her. And she goes, don't worry, we won't let that happen. I said, oh, you misunderstand. I'm not telling you this stuff so you can stop it from happening. I'm telling you this stuff so that when it happens, you know what to do.
Right.
I was like, it's diabetes. We're not going to stop diabetes from being diabetes.
Right.
This lion is going to bite your face one day.
Right.
I don't care how many times you go into the cage with it and it's fun and you're in Las Vegas and you're like, is that a Siegfried and Roy reference? It is. Yeah. One day the lion's going to kill you. Okay. It's at least going to come at you.
Or at least bite your arm off.
Yeah. You need to know how to hold up the whip in the chair when it happens, So,
right. Well, and there is actually what I was going to say, you need to know what to do, but in some cases, I think people get really good tools and really good explanation. And in other cases, people do not. They get these rip-off pages that say, well, here you go. This is all the information that you need. Just make sure you read through it. Oh, and here's your medicine. It's called insulin. You have to take it here, here, and here. Oh, and you might have low blood sugar. But then again, what can you do about it? Or what are even some of the tools, or I guess, what are some of the variables that could cause a low blood sugar? So you're ready. Right? Yeah. You can say, okay, well, activity will cause your insulin that you have to take to work better. So be careful for low blood sugars if your child eats a meal and then goes and plays soccer for 3 hours, right? Yeah. All these things that they should know are sometimes the definite causes of low blood sugar, because then at least people are aware of where they might see a low.
Mm-hmm. Well, and everything you're saying supports this next statement. The person said there was so much anxiety. My child had a fear that the ambulance was going to come take him away constantly. And that fear took months to wear away, she said. So, everything you just said would have given this person a little bit of calm, or even something to say to the kid, because the kid's like, what's going to happen? And when your answer is, I don't know, that's not supportive in any way for people. One person, this is great, because we're going to kind of segue here a little bit. Before we do, though, I want to say, I think it can be worse for adults that are diagnosed, because I think they get sometimes even less. And we talked about this in the adult diagnosis episode, and it's fresh in my head because I just put an edit on the show and I just heard it again. But that when you're an adult, sometimes you're like, here's the insulin, go to the store, get this prescription filled for needles, and then go see your endo. And then you call the endo and the endo is not available for 45 days.
Or worse, like 6 months. Right. And in the meantime, they have you visit with like a nurse or somebody in between who, there's a definite disconnect for adults. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think the other piece for adults is a lack of enough initial good information, but also many times that adult is on their own. Right? They may not have a spouse or a significant other or a family member who they're close enough with that they could share this with and get someone to look in on them, if you will. Right? And that makes it harder, because kids who have a parent or a caregiver, there's somebody that's got their back,
right?
Consistently paying attention for them. Adults don't have that. It is on you.
And you can slide into a depression. You can just slide into a complacency. Listen, completely disconnected from diabetes. My son just graduated from college. He's got a really good degree. He's a bright kid. And we told him, like, come home from school, like, just take a little time, decompress and everything. But now he's been home for about 3 weeks, and I had to go into him the other day and I'd be like, hey, let's get going now, right? Like, like
right.
he doesn't know
You've had your break.
Yeah, he doesn't. It's just as simple as a situation where he doesn't know the next thing to do, and you kind of turtle up sometimes. And then this is about, and then on top of that, you're scared of low blood sugars or high, whatever. Anyway, this next person says, I wish someone would have just told me that you can drink water when you're high and that'll help. So that's an example. They don't even understand how hydration affects the way the insulin works.
Right. Absolutely.
So, okay. I wish I had known that it would take some time to decrease a blood sugar, the initial one from the diagnosis number. And I really wish someone would have told me that my daughter might feel low in the hundreds, and that even though the number was normal, she would feel like she was low. Like that was never explained. Do you think people even understand that for the most part?
I don't think so. And it's a very good point that this person brings up. Absolutely. When your body has grown accustomed to a glucose level, right? And at initial diagnosis, your body has gotten used to feeling nasty, and it just thinks that that's the norm at a blood sugar of, let's say, 300 plus potentially. And with that being the case, once your blood sugar starts to come down, now that you're taking insulin, even drifts in blood sugar, not drastic drops, but just a drift under where your body's kind of been residing for a time, can start to feel like a low blood sugar. Do you need to treat that? No, but it can be scary.
Yeah.
Because it feels like all these symptoms you've been told to watch out for, which indicate, oh my goodness, my blood sugar's too low. But you look at your numbers, whether you're already on a CGM or you're just doing a finger stick because you're curious what is going on, and the number doesn't look like it's in the low range.
Right.
It can be very hard to know, well, what do I do about this?
Yeah. And the idea that your body will get accustomed to it after a while, but you can't forget while you're explaining all this to people, the feeling's still real.
Yes.
You feel like your blood sugar's 35 and your blood sugar's 110. And it can take sometimes days and weeks, depending on how long you've been high, for your body to get regular, and feel that way when you're at a regular number, I should say.
In fact, when I was diagnosed eons ago, things were very different, but there's no fancy stuff.
Jenny got diagnosed. Her mom had to go outside and wind up the car to take her to the hospital.
God, you make me sound like I'm like 90. No. But I was in the hospital for a full week, and they wanted me to have a low blood sugar while I was in the hospital.
Oh, okay.
So that I could experience lows or a low symptom and know what to do about it with, I'm assuming, the idea that there was somebody there with me and that they could help me see how quickly it could be treated, how it would feel different once my blood sugar was normalized again. Right. So, I mean, that was part of my week-long hospital stay.
Wow.
Was.
Did they announce it, or did it just... Like, did they tell you we're going to make you low while you're here? Do you remember?
No.
Oh, okay. It just happened. No. And then you realized.
I do. Well, they did say that. I remember the discussion, with my parents. We would like for there to be an excursion to a lower level so that Jenny can get an idea of how that feels, that you can hopefully be here at that same time, right. So that you can see how we treat it and everything. And I did have a lower blood sugar. I mean, it was by no means low, but it was certainly low or dropping. I do remember how I felt. But the good thing was that I got explanation.
Yeah. Right. And for the little things that you end up figuring out on your own, like for a lot of people, you can feel a fall. So yes. So you feel the fall before the number is an issue. And
correct.
Just stuff like that is great to learn. These next two statements are interesting. They're made by two different people, and it's a great perspective into what someone thinks before they've heard the podcast and what someone thinks after they've heard the podcast. Right?
Oh, awesome.
So this first person says, I wish they had taught us to use insulin without being afraid of lows. So that's a person who's now been listening to the podcast for a while. It's like, I know now how important using insulin is correctly. The fear of lows is what was stopping me from using it, et cetera, et cetera. But then here's a person who is giving you perspective from before they heard the podcast. I had way too much fear of insulin. they pretty much had me feeling like I was going to kill my son probably within the first week. So there you go, right? Like there's got to be a better way to, and I think we've gone over a lot of it already, but there's got to be a better way to let people understand how insulin works other than just to say to them, don't do it. It feels like it's 1950 and they're like, if you smile at a boy, you're going to be pregnant. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
Right. So if you're listening to this and you got that kind of information, I think you have to make the leap into the pro tip series and listen through so you can get an idea for how insulin works. So you can use it in a more targeted way or a more meaningful way, any way you kind of want to think about it.
Because then it does for many people. And I would say, with this topic of fear of insulin, I think I've seen more adults who have had a fear of insulin tied with a fear to things being too low than kids. And many times parents are very good about not projecting their fears onto their children,
right?
For the most part. I mean, there are some that's not the case for, but I think parents they try very hard to internalize worries and fears so that their child doesn't see that as well in terms of how to feel about something they're going to be living with, right? Yeah. Adults, however, again, are the ones managing their own health. There may not be a secondary assistive person there for them. So the fear of insulin can be very real when you're the only one who's got your back.
Yeah.
So, in that, I think it's learning about how does insulin work and how does it work for you? And sometimes, as I've worked with people, sometimes it's getting used to even just noting what small doses do. And then you can build on that, especially if you really just don't want to eat lettuce salads your entire life and you want to gravitate into other things that may require more insulin. Learning how to use more insulin should start in smaller doses then so that you can get a comfort level with what that does.
Right.
And with less need to over treat because there's not as much insulin left laying around.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so here's the other side of it. Here's a comment. One piece of well-meaning but bad advice that I got from another type 1 was that a high blood sugar will not send you to the hospital, but a low blood sugar can. So it's best to leave yourself high. So it's better high than low, which, and then,
that's very bad advice.
Yeah.
That's very bad advice. Do not listen to that piece of advice.
But it's an interesting way of showing how when you get bad information at first, it leads to fear. And then you go out into the world because you think, oh, I know this thing that's going to save someone else. I have to go tell them. And now the internet's interesting because when you're listening to someone talk, you have no idea if they've had diabetes for 3 minutes longer than you or 3 years longer than you. And when you don't know what you're talking about, the first thing that's said to you, often you go, oh, okay, well, this person must know better than I do. And,
right.
And that is that's one spot where I'm proud of my Facebook group where people do speak up. And so, if someone comes in with a kind of a new idea, someone else will nicely say, hey, look, we all get told that in the beginning, but here's the reason why you don't want your blood sugar to be high, and
right.
Highs cause lows and et cetera, and stuff you'll find out listening to the podcast. I
do like in the group too, that a lot of people are very able to point to either some of the episodes that you've done about specific topics and said, hey, for a lot more in-depth information and really to clarify this question, listen here or go here or try this, right?
There's a lot of, I tell you, there was a moment where I realized I can't keep up with this because it used to be me. Like during the day, I'd pop in and out and be like, hey, look at episode this or do that or try this. Have you listened to the pro tips? And one day I was like, I don't have the bandwidth for this, and now
24/7.
Isabel helps me with it now, which is terrific. But at one point I just said to the people in the group, I was like, if you see a question that can be answered by an episode, share the episode. And that's been very helpful for people. Okay. So then you see the next person knows this and says, don't accept high blood sugars as a norm because you'll start looking at numbers and just going, 200, it's not that bad. you know, and that
Right.
turns into 210, which turns into 250 and on the way. Here's an interesting one. I was just told to take my insulin 15 minutes before my food to pre-bolus. So I injected 10 units of Novolog on a 15-minute drive to get my food. I had a low on the highway, and here's the kicker. I didn't even know insulin could cause a low. I wish someone would have mentioned that. So obviously, obviously pre-bolusing is very important, right? And to get your insulin timed well, and you'll hear that in other episodes. But this person, the information they got was almost good. Like, you need to pre-bolus. But the person never in their mind thought that the insulin could take them lower than they wanted to be. Like, imagine that. Like, you know what I mean? It's
right.
Jenny, there's an ant on my wall. Hold.
I was going to say, it looks like you're looking at like...
This has to die. Give me a second.
I thought perhaps you had like water leaking from your ceiling, or like, maybe ghosts on your ceiling or something.
Well, I'll tell you, I might have preferred a ghost because I don't believe in those. And so I would have just thought I was like dizzy. But I kept thinking like, that thing's going to crawl over my head and follow me. Sorry. It's like a big black ant. I've never had an ant in this room. I'm going to have to sell this house. Okay.
In our house, it is stink bugs. I don't know where they have decided that their home is outside, that they don't like, but they come in our house, and I don't care. I just take them outside. Mm-hmm. My boys who love bugs and love stuff, they hate stink bugs. Yeah. They will come flying in and be like, there's a stink bug on the ceiling in my bedroom. And I'm like, okay, who's bigger? Are you bigger?
Go get it.
Or is the stink bug bigger?
You know, they're an import. Right? They came here.
Oh, are they really?
This is not what this is about.
Oh, no, it's okay.
I want to say China, maybe. But anyway, look it up. Have fun finding out. Okay. So the next person says, safe numbers are not high. Even if doctors tell you that, I wish someone would have been, clearer earlier. Another person says, I wish someone would have started in terms of telling me where to bring those numbers down. How do I do it with basal? Like, where do carbs fit in? Like, they didn't have any... You know what I mean? Like the stuff that seems kind of obvious after you had diabetes for a while, in the beginning, none of that's going to feel obvious.
Right.
None of it. Like, when
because it's brand new. Yeah, this is a concept that nobody is taught about at all. You may learn I remember learning about the tiny little, I think it was 2 paragraphs in my human biology course in high school. And I myself, having diabetes at that point, I was like, what is this bunch of like silliness? I was like, this in no way describes what I'm supposed to learn something from this.
Yeah, in a way, it mirrors how little we tell people about nutrition even, and like fueling their body. Everybody just is like, look, I get up, I wash my butt, I get hungry, I put something in my face, and then 10 years from now when I'm 40 pounds heavier, I go, what happened?
Right.
It's just, nobody really understands how things work. And listen, I grew up really poorly. I grew up broke. Like my mom had $60 to buy food for 3 people, right, for a week. And we ate whatever we could. And it was usually crappy food. And by the time I was an adult, I was heavy. Like I was just like, Mike, Kelly and I were together, and like, we didn't know what we were doing. We started over again. And, we were able to take care of it. But it's amazing how through your life it's pervasive. How easy it is to have a feeling of hunger and want to grab something that's easy in a bag or something like that versus like, let me have this orange or something to that effect. It gets burned into you and you don't know it. And that happens with people with diabetes all the time, because as we're talking about these newly diagnosed problems, I can tell you that if you don't figure them out early, you're going to be one of any number of people in their 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s who come on this show. Hold on. This, Jenny.
Somebody was very importantly wanting to get in touch with you.
Walgreens again. So I've talked to too many people who have had diabetes for decades who are still making the same, I don't want to call them mistakes, but decisions over and over again. And when you then present them with this information, it's sad because they think, well, why couldn't someone have told me this 5 or 10 or 20 years ago? Like I can't get this time back now,
And I think, and this is kind of it's a slippery slope to kind of to walk on, honestly, because I truly believe that it starts when someone is diagnosed and they are told, if we're just talking nutrition, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're essentially told, you can eat anything you want,
Right,
and just take insulin when you're supposed to take it.
it's supposed to be an empowering statement.
Correct. It's supposed to be empowering in that you don't have to worry as long as you just take this thing called insulin. Well, I mean, it brings in a whole nother rabbit hole of discussion, though, of, well, you want your child or you want yourself to be eating and doing what you see every other child doing. But is every other child eating the way that they should be eating?
Right.
Whether they have diabetes or not? Or as an adult, are you eating the way that your colleagues are eating because that's what they're doing and you're only following suit? Is that really, do they look healthy? I don't know.
Do you know that there are 3 aisles in my grocery store that I don't go down just based on the physical appearance of the people I see in the aisles? I just look at them and I think, I don't want my life to be like that. And
I clearly don't need this aisle.
Yeah, something in those aisles is because then there are, I know this is probably a weird thing to say, but then I look at other aisles where people seem more fit and I don't see these 2 people in these different aisles. And I'm like, I'm going to go follow the guy around with the nice calves and see what he buys. You know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, if you look at pictures, I mean, honestly, in the ages of development since I would say maybe the 1950s or 60s, potentially when more like processed, packaged, convenience stuff probably started to become more the norm. If you look at pictures like beach photos from like the shore or something, it is very difficult to see a body that isn't somewhat fit. Most of the bodies look like healthy bodies.
Yeah.
Today's pictures would look very different. I mean, there's got to be something in the food and how we are packaging what we are eating that's creating a lot of issue and within diabetes.
Yeah. And how does it fit into this subject? It fits into this subject because when you first have diabetes, bolusing for real food is easier than bolusing for processed food.
Correct.
And no one's going to mention that to you. No one.
No.
This person says, not knowing how fast or slow insulin could hit, or not knowing that, hey, this could kill you. At first, I was under the impression, this is the part that's important. I was under the impression that, okay, my kid's going to eat, and I got this robotic insulin dosing strategy, and everything is just going to be fine. And so they were told, count the carbs, give the insulin, do it like this. It's all just going to work out. And it doesn't go the same way. And that leads people to say things like, oh, it's just diabetes, or, one day I eat the same thing and then the next day I eat it and it's all different. No one tells you that the next day your insulin site is a day older. No one says, you had a, you don't know, right? Nobody gives you enough details. I had a burrito one day and I did well with it, but I had a burrito the next day and it didn't work. Well, did you make the burrito the first day and was the next day, was it from Taco Bell? Because, but in people's mind, it's burrito. And,
correct.
It's just, anyway, it's important. This person says, and I'm proud of this. I wish I would have known what Scott says, that trust what you know is going to happen for Lowe's. When I treat Lowe's, you need to trust that it's going to work the way you know it's going to work. Otherwise, you're going to create a rebound high afterwards.
Right.
Which can ruin a day. Safe numbers aren't high numbers. My first big concern was hypos. It's what they really hammered home in the hospital. She needs to eat this exact amount of food. It has to be weighed or she's going to have a hypo. And the person says, but what I learned is hypos are actually pretty straightforward and they're only a massive pain when my daughter's asleep. High blood sugars produce far more fear in me now. I assume there was only an issue with high blood sugars she assumed that high blood sugars were only a problem if there were a presence of ketones. And now she realizes that that's not right. So they didn't think a high number was a problem unless ketones were present.
Right. Which is often when, there are two angles, right? Really low blood sugar, fear that. Really high blood sugar, ketones, fear the potential of DKA. But you may have high blood sugars that are just within the realm of high enough without producing ketones that now you're leading into, if there's enough consistency to it, you're leading into continued damage.
Yeah, right.
Long term.
This next person says, I wish I would have known that every time the blood sugar shot up, I didn't have to check for ketones every single time. Like, so every time this kid gets a blood sugar over like 200, they're testing ketones. And you know, there's episodes on ketones and how to understand them. This person's quoting the podcast. It says, instead of beating yourself up when blood sugars shoot up or down, figure out why and try to prevent it next time. Take this as a learning experience, but you have to know it's not going to be perfect. You know, maybe never, and definitely not in the beginning. You know, and just to speak about that for a second, these things are going to happen, right? You're not going to stop them from happening. In my mind, there's two responses. You can panic and beat yourself up and be like, oh, I did it wrong. This sucks. I'm never going to figure this out. Or you can just realize there's a learning experience happening in front of you, and you step back, take yourself out of it for a second, and look at it. I put the food in here. I put the insulin in here. This is what happened next. I bet you if I would have done the insulin a little sooner or a little later, the food, you know, et cetera, if I would have just slid these things around in the timeline of my eating, I wonder how that would have impacted these bell curves that I'm seeing on my CGM or these numbers I'm seeing on my meter, right?
It is. I mean, diabetes, I've thought for a really long time how diabetes is, it is like a daily science experiment, if you will, right? And sometimes those days you're given the same little petri dish with, you know, like orange growing spots. And because your day is similar enough to the days before, the dots keep growing purple. Because you got it. You've kind of figured it out. You know your timing. You know what ends up happening if you do it this way or that way. And then comes in a day where the dots turn orange and purple furry and whatever by the end of the day. And usually there's a variable in the picture that you've not encountered before, or was something completely different that you've just, you know, you've never had that burrito from Johnny's corner spot or whatever it is, you know? So you learn.
This person says, I wish someone would have told me to always carry snacks, supplies, and emergency treatment with you. I am frequently thrown by how many people don't travel with at least a juice box
extra,
or their meters sometimes, or stuff like that. Like, I've talked to people like, I don't need my meter. I'm like, how do you know that? Like, if you know that, then this whole thing is easy. Like, cause you can predict it freaks me out a little bit. Like, you know, if we drive more than 30 minutes from my home, or we're doing something like you're going to go somewhere 20, 30 minutes away, but you plan on being there for 3 or 4 hours. I always say to my daughter, I'm like, take a pump with you. Yeah. A little bit of insulin, a pump. I'm like, you don't want this whole day to be ruined. If you bang into a door and your pump pops off or the thing stops working, you don't want to have to stop what you're doing and drive all the way back here. That's big picture stuff. Little easy picture stuff is you need your meter with you all the time. You need I'm fascinated by people who travel without the controller for their insulin pump. Like, well, what if you need insulin? I'll do it when I get back. When you get back, what are we talking about? But yeah, I'm like, no, but for lows, you have to have a way to stop a low with you.
Yes.
And not just one way, like
maybe,
yeah, because what if you drink the juice and it keeps going? You know, like, I mean, there's a difference between being paranoid and being prepared. You can't.
Correct.
You need to be, you know, in a modern society, you know, somebody in America who's living in a house where food's readily available. I get, you know, going to your neighbor's house or something like that, not feeling scared, but you don't start getting into cars and driving to locations where, like, yes, there's a Wawa on every corner. I mean, you know, or some sort of a convenience store, but you're not in there if your blood sugar starts dropping and you're driving your car.
Correct. So absolutely. I know in the turn of a season, usually like from winter into like spring, summer, I have different purses, if you will, that I might use. And I always end up having to like dig in the pockets of the purses and fish out like the really old glucose tablets.
Like,
Clearly, they're like, the sugar sort of starts to get harder and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, it's time to change those out. I would eat them if I had to, but they probably aren't going to taste very good.
So we have juice boxes in the pockets, our door pockets of our cars, right?
Yeah.
And one time we got down to the one where you're looking at it, you think, I can't believe this is holding the liquid anymore. Like, this should have been thrown away and replaced.
It's like the squishy, yeah.
And we had to give it to Arden. And even when she took the box, she went, oh, this is going to be horrible. And I was like, sorry. And, and it was.
But it'll work.
It'll work. But it was like syrup. It wasn't even like, it was bad. And she was looking at us like, you've got to be kidding me. I was like, I tell you to replace these things. No one listens to me. So, there you go. Here's an interesting one. I felt like I was bringing home a newborn baby. We talked about how diabetes can feel like a newborn baby. But she said that the first low that she saw was a 74, and they were running around their house like a lunatic. Like, we have to stop this.
It's 74.
And it reminds,
which can be scary if it was falling fast or if you had never seen that value. That's absolutely.
Contextually, absolutely. But in a situation where you're looking at a fairly stable 74 and you're thinking like, life is just about to end, it's when I say this sometimes because it's the one thing that I feel sad for people, but it does make me like laugh a little, having been in this game for so long. It's when you see somebody like show a graph and this kid's, blood sugar super stable, and then it dipped down to 80, and then the caption says like, I saved their life with a cookie. I'm like, nah, what? No, you didn't. You stopped.
We could have. Who knows how much it was going to dip after, right?
Okay.
But yeah.
But like that idea, and really what it outlines is that people just are not given accurate depictions of what a good blood sugar is. And
right.
I have an email that I've been going back and forth with this gentleman about that. I think this is a great place to put this. He said, I've been trying to keep my kids' A1C as low as I can, blood sugars as low as I can. But then I ran into this person in the diabetes community who said, no, you can't do that because, a blood sugar under 55 causes brain damage. And I always hear those conversations and I'm like, I don't think anybody really knows, but it's a hard thing to respond to because I don't want to be the person who says, I don't think a 55 blood sugar is going to give you brain damage, but I don't want to say that out loud in case I'm wrong. You know what I mean? But I mean, right. I don't want your blood sugar to be 55, Jenny, right?
No,
but
no.
Should it dip
I don't
there?
want it to be 55.
Right,
That doesn't feel nice.
Yeah, but should it dip there for a couple of minutes?
The couple minutes it's kind of in theory, the idea of cumulative time. It's just like highs, right? So the idea of deprivation to the brain over long periods of time or consistent over days and days and days of consistently having hours worth of low blood sugars. Right. There is research about brain health, especially in kids. Absolutely. But if your blood sugar dips to 55, and I've certainly had 55 blood sugars, and I don't think that I'm brain damaged. Do I sound brain damaged?
You want me to tell you? No, I'm kidding. No, you don't. You sound okay. Well, the way I ended up responding was I said, look, as we went back and forth and I got contextually better what they were saying, I said, listen, no one is saying that your blood sugar should be 55 for hours or,
right.
I said low and stable A1Cs, not like a life where you're like, oh my God, I'm 40. Oh my God, I'm 400. Oh my God, I'm
Correct.
40. I'm like, that's not good for you. I said, you want stability, but if you can't achieve an 80 blood sugar without it becoming a 55, you're not using your insulin correctly.
Right.
Right.
And something needs adjustment. Absolutely.
Right. So anyway, I mean, I don't know about, I agree with what you said. I would not want any measurement in my body to be way off for a long time, right? Your thyroid hormone's too high for a long time. It messes you up as a human being, right? If it's too low, it messes you up as a human being. Your blood sugar the same way. But, we talked about it earlier. You have diabetes, you're going to get low at some point. Like it's
Correct.
Just, you're going to do something and your blood sugar is going to be 400 one day and it's just going to happen. And your blood sugar is going to be 55 one day and it's just going to happen. And you are going to be in a situation more times than you care to count in your life where you actually think you saved your life with a cookie, right? Like it is,
Correct.
It is going to happen. And
yeah, I think that's a value too these days of definitely having the technology, specifically the CGM technology that we have,
Mhm.
because you do have a little bit more visual in terms of that line of sight, right? Where are you? Are you stable? Are you stable and sitting at home doing not very much? Okay,
Yeah.
then great. If you're sitting at, 82, you're probably not going to treat that because you're stable. What's
Mhm.
wrong with that? If you're 82 and you're going to head out on a 10-mile bike ride, you probably don't want an 82 blood sugar unless you've done something that is now going to hold that stable
Right.
at that level, right?
Yeah. Here's a couple of other things that are interesting to look at people's brains and how they work back and forth. Like, people are different, right? This one person says, I wish someone would have told me what happens when you go low. How low is going to make me pass out? What's going to happen to my body then? I wanted that information. But the next person says, here's the thing that messed me up. I thought the smallest mistake was going to kill me. And it created panic attacks. And so there you go. Two different people in a similar situation. They want
Different things.
different things. And that is, in the end, why you have to go out and advocate for yourself and look for information, because the doctor doesn't know if you're the person who's going to have a panic attack or if you're the person who says, hey, what's going to happen to me after I pass out? And when's that going to happen?
Right.
And those numbers are different for everybody. I've seen Arden have a seizure at I think 20 was the blood sugar. And I've seen her talking to me when she's 28, like there's nothing wrong. So I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? It's a teeter line. Like it's like you're dimming a light, and there's a moment where, you still have plenty of room left on the dimmer, but the thing just goes off and you go, oh, that was weird. And so you can't.
It is.
What I would tell people is, I don't want my daughter's blood sugar under 70 if I can help it. I treat it when it looks like it's going to go to 65. I treat it more urgently when it's under that number, 60, 65, 55. I think we've messed up pretty good here. And, lower than that, she's going to start becoming incapable of helping herself. Like, it's going to start to get worse and worse.
Right.
So,
right.
To me, 70 is, is the
And
lowest.
I think another thing that goes along with this too, especially for kids, is I've had a lot of parents tell me, I ask my child how they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, I'm fine, mommy. I feel just fine.
Yeah.
Kids don't really, and I don't know that there's necessarily an age of awareness of symptoms that they're, that it starts to be like age 8, they'll definitely know what a low feels like, right?
Yeah.
I think for every child or teen, it's probably going to be a little bit different. But a lot of parents worry because their children just have no self-awareness of symptoms.
Right.
And that's hard because, I know myself, when my little kids get really busy with their Legos or whatever, like sometimes I have to call to them like 3 or 4 times and get their attention. They are so into what they're doing that awareness of other things is completely not there.
Mm-hmm. And your kids don't have diabetes on top of all
No.
that. So
no.
Do you have a little time or you have to go?
Yeah, I've got a little time.
Okay. Another person, I guess we need an episode on this. The research about blood sugar numbers, what is actually less likely to cause long-term health, highs or lows? I mean, I don't know how scientific it is, but I'm more worried about highs than lows, for long-term health, especially. I mean, short-term, a low blood sugar gets you right now, but,
right.
Long-term, I think it's a high. This is interesting. I focused so long on this, and I don't think I should have. The perfect math. She says, we were seriously so scared to give a little too much insulin, like even by a tiny bit. And then quickly they realized that everything was sort of a best guess to begin with. I used to, on the old Omnipod PDM, you had to hold this arrow up to make the carb count go up. And,
yes.
and it would like get to, I didn't really count carbs at that point at all. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do 4 units for this. And I'd hold the button, and if it stopped at 4.5, I was like, that's fine. And, it's close enough. Now for little kids, a half a unit's a big deal. Actually, a woman made a point in an earlier statement that I never brought up. She said, I once took a unit of insulin out and put it in a spoon, and then I took 10 units of insulin out and put it in a spoon. And she goes, and it freaked me out at how similar those two amounts looked. And I thought, yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? But in the, obviously in a syringe, you can see it better, but
right.
That's just an interesting one, right? Like,
It is.
I see people all the time like, well, I made a bolus, it was 4.1 and I think it was too much. And I'm like, but I guess, all right, as you get bigger and you require more and more insulin, those tiny
0.1 isn't going to make a hill of beans of difference.
It doesn't really. It doesn't really.
Which is the reason that many people, especially pumpers, get frustrated when they're trying to correct higher blood sugars and their pump is recommending something like 0.2 units. And they think, well, 0.2, like what is 0.2? What's the purpose of that? It's not going to do anything to help me at this point, right?
Yeah.
And that's when they get more aggressive. And then you're like, oh, well, I clearly should have taken the 0.2 instead.
This person says, I wish someone had told me that my eyesight was changing when I got low and that it would come back. Like, I guess from being dizzy. And also, she said, conversely, I had been high for so long that my eyesight had gotten bad. And that as I brought my blood sugar down, that changed. That was scary. A person here says, I remember thinking that if she's still low, like, do I still do insulin? Like when I feed? Like, okay, she's 60, but she ate 20 carbs. And we talk about that on the podcast all the time. You need to cover the amount, there's an amount of carbs to fix the low, and then there's an amount of carbs you don't need. Some of that needs insulin.
Correct.
And this one's interesting. I was told there was a 3-hour rule that we couldn't give any insulin unless it had been 3 hours since the last dose. This caused many high blood sugars for us, was not explained well. And it seems like a big one for newly diagnosed people, and I think you should bring it up, she said. So I think
and I think, we talked about stacking, I think, recently in an episode, but that kind of goes along with initially the idea that once upon diagnosis, once insulin is starting to be injected, they're very cautious, assuming the potential for honeymoon. So what they're looking for is, let's give a timeline of what we're expecting this rapid insulin dose to work over. And let's be careful about not adding extra within this. But as you always say, if you've done it enough that that, well, yesterday and the day before, I didn't do anything except after 3 hours, and her blood sugar just sat high. Yeah. Clearly, there was more insulin that was needed there. Right. So give more insulin.
And we are going to get into that in the next episode of this, because the next thing we're going to do is the 15-15 rule. So we'll get to talk a lot about that. But we're done. We made it through. There were a lot of questions in this one, and we chit-chatted in the beginning about personal stuff. So I'm pretty before we started recording. So I'm very happy with what we got accomplished today. Thank you very much.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely.